Guys, holy moly. That was a very big episode. It wasn't a very long episode, but a lot happened. Um and it had everything. It had crazy stomach churning sci-fi insanity with the snake, the giant snake monster. The snake eats the tree and then turns into a eldritch monstrosity looking like some kind of a squid thing, looking like a Lovecraftian horror from the ninth dimension. Um, and Sue in the tree got eaten, and we had that horrible moment of Sue saying "burn me" through the radio, like in Alien or something. We had everyone consuming the fruit from the tree of knowledge, which is like the flesh and blood and brain of Sue. We had a massive exposition dump from grandmother. I love this moment. Mother just walks up and says, "Hey, grandmama, just straight talk. Tell me, what is the mysteries of this planet? What is the situation with the everything?" And grandmother's like, "Oh yeah, sure," and just dumps a bunch of stuff about the technocrats and the shepherds and trying to destroy the planet. The entity wants to destroy the planet. What's that about? Marcus loses his faith. Grandmother gets beat up by a monstrous serpent baby. Vril died. The wonderful, homicidal, horrifying rogue android Vril, her spine broke, but she wrote all of the memories of the real Vril before she died. What was that about? What is that gonna lead to? What was going on there? Tempest's baby got retrieved by Tempest and Father and Hunter, and Tempest decided to reject her baby, but then Hunter killed its surrogate mermaid mother, and now they've got a baby that Tempest doesn't want, and like Hunter is left holding it. My God, there's so much to talk about. Let's get into it. I enjoyed this episode a lot. I think this might be one of, if not the best episodes of Raised by Wolves. Because it had so much like crazy sci-fi mystery lore stuff. It also had so many great, just like acting performances. Like from Mother, Amanda Collins. She was so vulnerable and conflicted and defeated. And, you know, Tempest with the baby and Marcus losing his faith. I very much enjoyed Marcus this episode. Like Marcus, what's his name? Travis something? Like Travis's performance as Marcus is always so great. And I find like look at this look in Marcus's eyes. Like he's like this season he's always like fidgeting. Like he's never standing still. He's always he's like tweaking. You know, like look at him. He's like touching his face. He's touching his hair. He looks really agitated all the time. Like look at him shaking his head around. Like you really get the sense that like he has been through the ringer. You know, like his body and his mind and his soul has been through so many wild disruptions and transformations, like, you know, taking a new face in season 1, swallowing the dark photon eyeballs, becoming a prophet, losing his faith, gaining his faith. I feel like you can really see the mileage and like the damage that all of that has done to Marcus. And I think, you know, he had this lofty, insane, untethered, unhinged peak as a prophet of God for the last 10 episodes or so, but now he's sort of come back to the ground and he's sort of lost something. He's lost his power, he's lost his faith, but he's sort of gained his connection to his humanity some more, I think. And we sort of see that with Mother. And I think Marcus has lost faith in God, but he's sort of gained faith in Paul, is I think like Marcus's the new center of Marcus's world is Paul, I think. So yeah, really enjoying this show. Let's talk about it. A lot of speculation in the chat about grandmother. Grandmother is extremely intriguing. Mother is putting a lot of hope, a lot of faith, you might say, in grandmother to sort of like solve these problems. Mother has found herself unable to destroy her serpent baby. Even though it's a monster, she feels unable because she feels attached to it. And we're sort of hoping that grandmother is going to solve that problem, because grandmother does seem to be immensely powerful and she seems to know everything. And I'm always suspicious when someone turns up with all the answers and all the solutions and says they're going to fix everything for you. There's something very creepy about grandmother's veil. And, you know, I mean, this whole look, this like shadowy dark room. I don't know if we can trust grandmother entirely. I think that, like, thematically, this episode, and I guess this season, is about loss of innocence, growing up. I mean, that's what the Tree of Knowledge is and the Garden of Eden. It's about losing your innocence, growing up, moving out, discovering sin, and having to live with uncomfortable truths. And I think that's what all of the characters are sort of doing in a lot of ways. They're sort of coming to terms with their own flaws, their own failures. Like Mother is coming to terms with, you know, the consequences of her choices with, like, you know, keeping the serpent. And you know, Paul is sort of undergoing a similar sort of loss of faith as Marcus, because Paul has this beautiful, innocent, naive belief that, like, if we just follow God's plan, Sue is going to come back to us, everything's going to be great. But that does not happen. Sue does not come back. Everything is not okay. Paul witnesses the serpent murdering people, the serpent that he helped empower and he helped weaponize through his fulfillment of the prophecy with the seeds and growing the tree. And I think Paul, in his quiet way, sort of undergoes a similar loss of faith or loss of, you know, belief in the world, loss of innocence. And you know, Campion, I think Campion's journey is really interesting, because Campion has always been the one who believes that everything has a soul. We can be friends with everyone. Androids deserve our respect. Snakes deserve our respect. Trees deserve our respect. Everyone should get along. He believes in the goodness in everyone. Even the murderous, homicidal Vril, he sees the goodness in her. And what's sort of happening is that Campion, you know, tries to go and... I think that next episode Campion is going to try and talk to the snake, because Campion has always had a connection to the snake, to number 7, and has sort of tried to connect with it. And I suspect that next episode Campion will maybe even succeed at sort of making a human connection with the weaponized serpent. But I don't think it'll end well. But because, like, several times this episode they say that, oh, the serpent, you know, like the serpent... It's acting out of jealousy against Campion. It's a really interesting moment when, like, grandmother is saying, like, oh yeah, the snake, yeah, no, well, that snake is going to want to destroy the planet. But mother says, it seems to me that the serpent's jealousy over his brother is guiding him more than a desire to destroy the planet. And grandmother is surprised by that. And grandmother says, oh, it has emotions. And mother says, well, I gave birth to it, which is an incredible moment, like, from mother. Like, I love just this shot and this whole vibe. Like she is so vulnerable in this moment, acknowledging her emotions, her human weaknesses that resulted in this whole situation. But that's a whole other thing. Like the fact that grandmother is surprised that the serpent has emotions. I think that is telling us that the serpent has some kind of humanity. It has some kind of feelings, which means that we can connect to it emotionally. So I suspect that next episode, Campion will succeed in connecting with the serpent emotionally and, like, making some kind of peace with it. But I don't think it'll end well. I think that grandmother will destroy the serpent anyway. Because, like, grandmother said, like, you know, I am a shepherd. It is my role to protect humans no matter what. Ensuring the everlasting life of human beings is my priority, she says. So I think that grandmother will destroy the serpent, but I think that it'll be done in a way that it's kind of fucked up. And it's like, oh no, like, just when we were connecting with the serpent, grandmother destroys it. And I think that this whole sort of idea of, I mean, this idea of a shepherd, right? Like, grandmother says that I am a shepherd who protects humanity. There are so many sci-fi stories about, like, robots being programmed, you must protect humanity at all costs. And then the result is something terrible. Like, the robots don't allow you, like what's that story, With Hands Folded or something? And the robots decide that the best way to keep humans safe is to keep them, like, locked up in straitjackets, and they're not allowed to live, and they're not allowed to take risks, and they're not allowed to do anything because that might endanger them. And they almost sort of flirt with that idea with like the trust, like this tyrannical robot, this utilitarian robot, the trust that runs the atheistic colony, and it makes the best decisions for everyone. But people question, like, do we really want to be ruled by a computer? Like, if a robot is our shepherd, are we not sheep? We don't want to be sheep. Wake up, sheeple, to your robot overlords. There's a political dimension to it, I guess. This idea of, do we want to be ruled, and do we want to be ruled by technology? And I'm starting to feel like the great evil in Raised by Wolves, it's not snakes, it's not even God. I think it's technology. And technology has always had like a deep mythological, religious meaning behind it in our mythology. Like, and that starts with Prometheus, right? Like, the story of Prometheus is about man stealing fire from the gods. And that's about technology. That's about power. That's firepower, And I think that this story is so much about the dangers of technology, the dangers of firepower. That's what the necromancers represent. The necromancers are weapons of mass destruction. Fire. And that technological fire is what destroyed Earth. The backstory is that the Mithraic and the atheists in their holy war destroyed the environment of Earth through their technology, in the same way that, we as humans are damaging our environment with technology in ways that endanger our own survival, or at least our own, long-term comfort. And so I kind of feel like technology is maybe the evil, because like the whole evil entity thing, there's a lot of questions over, like, is the entity a god, like a supernatural god, or is the entity a piece of technology? And our hypothesis for a while now has been that this planet core thing in the center of the planet that we saw last season, it looks just like the Trust. It looks just like the Trust, which is explicitly an artificial technological construct. It is a quantum computer or something, and it has like a biological wibbly wobbliness to it, but it is a technological construction. And I think we can be pretty confident, I think it's a good theory, that this planet core is Soul. It is the entity. And in fact, that was kind of confirmed in the official Raised by Wolves podcast this week. The official Raised by Wolves podcast talked to a visual effects editor guy, and he said, and I guess this is almost like a spoiler, but it was in the Raised by Wolves podcast. In the official podcast, he said that this core is the entity. He confirmed what we have been theorizing, and lots of people have been theorizing for a long time, is that this core is the entity Soul. And the visual effects guy called it the bean. The bean, like it's a little bean, which is a very cute and odd name for the god. But my point is that I think that this entity, this god that's been manipulating everything, it's a technological construction. I think it is a quantum computer like the Trust. It is a rogue AI from ancient bygone ages. And so I tend to think that this is not a story about gods so much as it's a story about technology. It's certainly about our religious and spiritual feelings and beliefs. Like religious behavior is a reality. Religious behavior and belief is a fact of the human experience. Gods, I suspect, are not. But religion is. Religion is real and technology is real, and that is what this show is about, those two things. That's sort of my view on it. Anyway, thank you for the super chat from Angela Smith, who says, same episode, we're told not to trust androids, grandmother gives us history. And considering all those devolved humans, I raise my eyebrow to protecting all humans at all costs. Yes, so Holly in this episode says, you can't trust androids. Where is it? It's like back here a bit. Yeah. Androids lie. They're the greatest liars there are, Holly says. And then, 20 minutes later, grandmother says, yeah, I'm the shepherd, and I'm gonna protect everyone. And, yeah, I know what's going on. I can help destroy the serpent, blah, blah. So yes, I think that is a very good reason to be skeptical and mistrustful of grandmother. Just in the same way that mother is this robotical authority figure who turned out to be a liar and whose choices were terrible for humanity in the long run in a lot of ways. I think the same may be true of grandmother. I mean, I guess, like, you know, like, consistent with this whole theme of, like, hey, you know, let's lose our innocence, let's face difficult truths, let's question our authority figures, let's question our parents. Like, you know, the androids are held up as, like, look, they are these perfect logical things, which is kind of how a child might see their parent, you know? Like, when you're a child, you think that your parents know everything, and you think that your parents know what's right, and then growing up is the process of realizing, oh, you know, my parents actually... there's a lot of things they don't know, and there's a lot that they taught me that is wrong, and they have a lot of weaknesses, and they have a lot of flaws, and growing up is realizing that. And then growing up further is realizing, oh, and I also have a lot of flaws and weaknesses. I have a lot of similar flaws and weaknesses to my parents. And, you know, some people repeat the mistakes of their parents. Some people go on and make up their own terrible mistakes and become flawed and fucked up in an entirely different way than their parents were. Those are all different paths of growing up, like the diverging branches of a tree. And that's how we evolve, is by making different mistakes than our grandparents. Our parents. There's a quote by Frank Herbert, the author of Dune, where he says something along the lines of, you know, repeating our grandparents' mistakes. And he's saying that, you know, Frank Herbert said, if I lived in my grandfather's time, I would make my grandfather's mistakes. I would make the same mistakes that my grandfather did if I lived in my grandfather's time. But I don't live in my grandfather's time, and so I want to make my own mistakes. I don't want to repeat my grandfather's mistakes. It is stupidity to repeat the mistakes of the past. I am going to make mistakes, but I at least want them to be my own mistakes, you know? And Frank Herbert's really into this idea that this sort of process of, like, fucking up and having challenges and taking risks and fucking up repeatedly is how we sort of grow. As long as we're facing new challenges and new obstacles and evolving, and adversity makes us evolve and makes us stronger, is sort of Frank Herbert's deal. Sean Rose in the live chat says, I'm pretty sure grandmother is Sol. I mean, grandmother was dead for most of the show. Like, she was a corpse that father grew from like from non-existence, from death. You know, I don't think grandmother is Sol. I think grandmother is what she says she is. I think she is a machine that was built by the ancient humans of Kepler 22b. Probably for the purpose that she says, like, probably to protect humanity, but I'm not sure if that's going to work out too well. There's also this interesting idea that grandmother is going to be unveiled. She's going to remove her caul, and mother is going to wear grandmother's veil. And they said something about, like, it's like a perceptual blocker that, like, changes it. The veil could help to null your caregiving impulses. It is a sensory filter. We are able to make the best decisions for humans that way. What the fuck does that mean? The veil changes how you see the world? The veil changes how you feel? Interesting. And the other thing is that, like, I feel like Aaron Guzikowski is really plumbing his, like, freshman philosophy class with Raised by Wolves Season 2, because, like, the Trust this season, the quantum computer AI that rules the atheist collective, it is explicitly a utilitarian machine that rules humanity by a utilitarian philosophy, which means maximizing the good and maximizing the happiness and minimizing the pain. And that's like a classic philosophical thought experiment. Like, what would such a machine do? And would that be good, and would that not be good? Another similar concept is the concept of the veil, and I don't remember exactly what the deal is with the veil, but from memory, the veil is about if you had a ruler, if you had a philosopher king, if you had a government in charge of the universe, if you had it rule from behind a veil, that would mean that it's like a person making decisions for society, but not knowing its own place in society. So let's say you were the king of the world, and you have to make all the rules. What happens to who? How does everything work? But you don't find out until later what your role is. So you don't know if you're a king, or if you're a peasant, or if you're a priest, or if you're a merchant, whatever social class you have. The decisions that you make, you're behind the veil. It's like a veil of impartiality. It's like a veil of being unbiased. You have no special connection to anyone. Just like, when Mother puts on this veil, she will not have a special preferential treatment for her child, for her snakes, for her family. She sees everyone as equal. And that, from memory, is sort of the point of like this philosophical idea of the veil that you rule from. It's like you treat everyone equally, unbiased, unprejudiced. Which sounds great, but like treating everyone the same, treating your family the same as a stranger is dehumanizing and inhuman. But it's also fair and just. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sure someone could explain that better than me. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for the super chat. Says, Mother wearing the veil and losing her emotions won't backfire at all. Yeah, it'll definitely be terrible. like Mother without her, like Mother is so defined by her familial, emotional relationships and connections. If she loses that, she may become more effective in like a purely rational sense, but she will be scary and it will probably traumatize her family. So we'll see how that goes. The trust operates from behind the veil in that sense. Like the trust treated people the same, just handing out these marbles and just sort of impartially. Like the trust was willing to sacrifice the life of Paul to kill Marcus. Because the trust doesn't treat Paul as being special. Everyone's equal, and all things being equal, the trust decided that Marcus being dead was worth the sacrifice of Paul. Like, that's the kind of decision that you might make from behind the veil of impartiality as a ruler. And, maybe Mother will make some similar choices of sacrifice. So yeah, like I speculated earlier that maybe like Grandmother will kill the serpent and it'll be kind of fucked up. Maybe what'll actually happen is that Mother will kill the serpent and it'll be kind of fucked up. My speculation is that maybe Campion will successfully make friends with the horror serpent, and then Mother will come and kill the serpent, wearing the veil. And then maybe at the end, Mother will take off the veil and sort of realize, oh, I just killed number 7. This is crazy. Thanks for the super chat from Silverscale, who says, the veil is also for purity. Brides traditionally wore veils until the ceremony. Yeah. And the veil is about innocence, right? Like this whole episode and season is about like the loss of innocence. And a veil on a bride, and in like a lot of religious traditions, a veil is about chastity, and it's about innocence, and it's about, being protected from the outside evils and sins of the world. Under the veil, you are pure and separate and safe and untainted. So yeah, that is definitely the sort of idea they're playing with here. Thanks for the donation. Thanks very much for the generous donation from 5 Gingers, who says, this stream is one of the favorite aspects of my week. Thank you so much. Thank you, 5 Gingers. CJ Maher, thanks for the super chat, who says, is it possible that the planet is a prison for Sol, and that's why he wants to destroy the planet so he can be free? Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Because Grandmother says this episode that the goal of the entity is to destroy the planet. That is what the entity wants, Grandmother says. So maybe this whole planet is not like a naturally occurring planet necessarily, but it's actually a prison built to contain the entity, which is like a rogue AI. So in like the ancient past, this rogue AI, started causing havoc across the galaxy. So whatever super advanced ancient humans existed decided that they couldn't destroy the entity, but they could lock it up. They could imprison it. It reminds me of that Doctor Who episode. There was that really fun Doctor Who David Tennant episode where Satan was locked up in a prison planet orbiting a black hole because they couldn't destroy Satan, but they could lock it up, and it uses its psychic influence from within the planet to try and draw humans to it and to trick them into setting him free. And I think that works. And I think that it's possible that this whole Mithraic religion and like drawing all the people to the thing and like the scripture, it's all a lie created by this AI in order to convince humanity to free it from its prison. You can also speculate like, these pits in the planet's core. Like I sort of understood these pits as being like Aaron Guzikowski, the show's creator, in interviews described it as like a subway system for the snakes. Like these pits, they riddle the planet. Like there are these tracks and pits and lines running all through the planet so that the serpents can travel. They can go through the pits to go through the planet core and quickly get anywhere on the planet. And so it's like a transport network. But I think like another sort of interpretation of what these pits are about, it's almost like weakening the planet. It's almost like boring through the planet, like riddling it like Swiss cheese until like the structural integrity of the planet is weakened and breaks, and so the core, so the entity can escape from within. The AI can be free. But it does raise questions like there's natural life on Kepler 22b, and like I guess that just sort of happened to evolve on this planet, even though it's an artificially built planet. If you built Kepler 22b, the planet, as just a prison for the rogue AI entity, like why is there life and stuff on the planet? Like why would I guess stuff just naturally tends to evolve, and so. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but like it's in like the habitable zone and everything. Like if I was making a prison for a rogue AI satanic monster god, I would not put it in the habitable zone. Is all I'm saying. Like I would put it like, real close to the sun, like Mercury, and I'd give it like a rotational period and an orbit that will not support life, and I would make the atmosphere acid. But it's interesting that life is on Kepler 22b, on this prison. So, like, I wonder if that's Satan's doing. Like, I wonder if the entity in the core has sort of changed Kepler 22b and made it inviting to humanity, Like maybe Satan became a creator god in order to lure Ooh, it's theologically interesting. Thanks for the super chat from T8 Magic, who says, what if grandmother will build the Golden City? She is a shepherd of humanity. She has incredible dark photon power, and she is gold. Yeah, so there is this idea in the Mithraic prophecy that there will be a city, a paradise will be built by the chosen one, and that's like the fulfillment of the prophecy. Like every great religious prophecy leads to paradise for all humans, right? And I think last episode, like grandmother had an image on her veil that looked like a city, and like Paul has been building cities, city. So here's like season 1 episode 3. Paul was, building this stuff, and again in season 1 episode 7, and so this is like part of the whole prophecy. My suspicion is that when the Golden City is built, it will not be a paradise necessarily. Because like in the same way that, the tree turned out to not be exactly what we were expecting, and mother's birth of her child was not what we were expecting, I think the prophecies will come true, but not in the ways we expect, just like in A Song of Ice and Fire. So I think that the city might be like a great cool city, but it's not a city for humans. It's a city for snakes. Or it's like it's a city, but the city runs on sacrifice, like the fucking Aztecs. There's a river of blood powering this city through the sacrifice of humans and androids or something. Like I think there may be a city, but it'll be fucked up. And also like there is I don't know if they've got the budget to build a giant golden city. Like I think the show has done a really admirable job of like being great despite limitations and reductions in budget and number of episodes and stuff like that. But like I think that this show, like, it sort of wants, or it needs to expand in scope and become more sort of epic and large scale, and building cities and gods and battles. I think they would be like natural things to happen next, but I don't know if they're going to be able to do it in quite the same way. Outlaw Star in the live chat says, I feel like there's a time loop happening. The prophecies only exist because time goes in a circle and the past repeats itself in the future. Yeah, I think you're right, Outlaw Star, because this whole description of grandmother saying that, oh yeah, the technocrats, they fought against the believers in the war, and they built the androids. I mean, that sounds like a repetition of what happened on Earth, which was a holy war between the atheists and the Mithraic, who built the robots to fight the atheists. It does seem like time is repeating itself. And yeah, maybe prophecies are not really predictions of the future. Prophecies are actually just memories of the past. And since humans tend to repeat ourselves, that's why prophecies are predictive. It's not because they know the future, it's because we remember the past, and the past tends to happen again and again, as anyone who has studied history knows. Josh in the live chat says, I think when they were cast out, God sends them to what we call Earth to start over and have free will yet again. The fruit from the tree will make the humans drones for the entity, Dante says. Yeah, it's a really interesting question what like effect the fruit is going to have on the people who eat it. Like it sort of seems as though the purpose of the fruit is not for humans, it's for snakes, because it seems like sort of the plan and the purpose of the tree was to weaponize the snake. And that was sort of reinforced by what the VFX guy said in the official podcast this week. Like the tree, like the reason for the tree is that the entity can't directly speak to people and access people and influence people in the tropical zone because of the EMF field. So the entity has to be clever in how it manipulates people. And so the whole prophecy of like the seeds to grow the tree of knowledge, the purpose of that is that the tree, like its roots grow all the way down to the planet core. And that was sort of hinted at all season by this imagery, showing the tree and the roots growing down deep. And so the idea is that the roots go all the way down to the planet core, like the pits. And I guess that is kind of ridiculous for the roots to literally go all the way down to the core. I guess it's more energy or something. But the point is that the tree connects to the entity in the planet core. And so this is a way, see like the yellow energy coming up from the ground, that's like the energy of the entity's soul going up from the planet core through the tree into the snake. So it was the goal of the entity to weaponize the serpent, and the tree was just a way of doing that. But that sort of raises the question, like, if the point of the tree was just to transform the snake, will the fruit have any impact on humans? Like, what will the fruit do to the humans? I tend to think it will do something, because it was wonderfully ominous when Paul was like, oh yeah, you should totally eat this fruit. It's totally not my mother's flesh. Yeah, you should do that. It's safe. It came from Sector 7. It's been tested, so it's fine. I love this woman who is the first person to eat the fruit. Like, she just comes up and And she's like, "Oh, what's this? What's this weird shit? Can I eat it?" And Paul's like, "Yeah, new fruit just dropped, just came out." And on the word of this child, this weird Mithraic child, this woman is like, "Yeah, all right, I'll eat that. I'll put that in my mouth." Woman, this is a planet where the ocean is acid. The ocean is acid here. You're eating random fruit? Like, I would not be the first to eat anything on this planet, but she's like, yeah, all right, I'll give it a crack. So you got to admire the balls on this person. And then everyone else is like, well, she's not dead, so I guess I'll try it. But the point is, it's very ominous, this whole scene, and I think it was really well done. Paul's horror about with everyone eating the flesh. And then, like, Mother tries to stop the people from eating the fruit, and she stops Vita from eating it. But I wonder, like, will there be some significance to, like, who eats it and who does not? Like, Campion does not eat the fruit. Where is that shot? Like Paul comes back to the settlement and he sees that Campion has not eaten the fruit, and he looks kind of relieved that Campion has not eaten the fruit. And I think that, like, symbolically, that's about, Campion sort of still has his innocence. Campion still believes that everyone can get along. Campion still believes that, he still has his childlike innocence, which I think he's going to lose next episode. But the idea of the fruit representing loss of innocence, and, certainly it could have some kind of change to people's bodies, to people's minds. Like, maybe the fruit will make people, like, mindless, servile obeyers of the Mithraic religion and the entity. Maybe once you eat the fruit, you can hear the voice of the entity, even in the tropical zone. Or maybe the fruit will have no impact. Maybe it'll just give you really bad gastro because it's a fucking alien brain fruit. I don't know. So yeah, I think that's why Campion didn't eat the fruit. Like it's representative of him still having his innocence. He still believes you can make friends with homicidal robots. He still believes you can make friends with serpents. He still, has not done evil. He does not yet know evil, but I think that by next episode, he will. Schubert speculates that maybe the fruits smell like meat. Yeah, here's the moment. I think this is a significant shot. Like, Campion sort of looks at the fruit and he's like, should I eat the fruit? And he's like, nah. So that's Campion rejecting the sort of sin and the loss of innocence and the knowledge. Gosher in the live chat says that Campion felt that the fruits had a soul. Yeah, that's a good point. Like Campion is sensitive to the spirits in things, and so maybe he sort of sensed, emotionally or literally, that there is something alive in here, because that's sort of what he does. HW in the live chat says, why could Sue hear soul? That is still a big question to me. Yeah, because last couple of episodes, Sue was following the voice of the entity, but it's been established that the entity can't talk to people in the tropical zone because of the EMF field. So why could Sue hear the voice? Like, I was sort of thinking that maybe Sue was actually hearing a different voice, a different entity. Maybe it's the voice of the Trust or grandmother or something. But everything that the Trust, everything that the voice told Sue to do was for the service of this plan, for Sue to turn into a tree and to weaponize the snake, which is the entity's soul's plan. So I tend to think that the voice Sue was hearing was the same voice, the same entity that we've been hearing all along. But how was the entity able to speak to Sue? I don't know. Was there is it because, like, grandmother's there? Is it because of the seeds? Is it because Paul turned into a reptile? I don't know. There's got to be some reason. Silver Scale in the live chat says that Campion is this civilization's first animist. Yeah, animism is like seeing the spirits in all things, right? There's certainly a long tradition of humans seeing and feeling and believing in the spirits of all the creatures and the world and around them. Mountains can have souls. Rocks can have souls. iPod shuffles can have souls. I can vouch to that. Humans are we anthropomorphize everything, and we apply our feelings to everything, and that's definitely one of the themes of this episode. Like, I love how Mother keeps talking about, her inability to destroy the serpent is like, quote, like a glitch in her parenting programming, or what do they say, the programming routine, the parenting, I forget the exact term they use. Yeah, a problem with my caregiving program. That is how Mother describes her feelings for her snake baby. And it's like saying, and it's like she's saying, yeah, it's a glitch in her programming, like her inability to destroy this thing because it came from her. Like, she loves it even though she knows it's bad for her. She describes it as like a robotical glitch, but of course that's something that humans do. Like, we have these feelings that are not rational, that compel us to, have relationships with people who we know are not good for us, or we have like bad habits. And there's this idea of pareidolia. Like, there's this idea in human perception that humans tend to see faces in things. Like, have you ever like looked, in some dark environment and seen like a human face, or like eyes, or like a human silhouette, and you go, whoo, and shit, you look at it and it's like, oh, it's actually just a weird shaped tree. But our human perception is wired to see faces in everything and to see humans in everything. Like we sort of think of our pets as being kind of human and having human feelings in ways that sometimes aren't always there. I mean, humans keep pet rocks, like we see humanity in everything. And you sort of can see that as being a glitch in our programming, Like we have human feelings in order to socialize and in order to work together and in order to reproduce. It doesn't really make any fucking sense for us to become emotionally attached to pet rocks, or to Tamagotchis, or to Furbies. Like, that is a glitch in our human evolution, that we are attached to these things. But that's sort of what Mother is describing. And it also is what is human about us. Like, obviously, there's more to being human than just reproducing. Like, there's more to love than just oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine. Like, I really enjoy Vril this episode, because Vril keeps saying that, like she has this great conversation where she tells Paul that, like, oh, humans only want people who make them feel good, and the only way to have a human relationship, the only way to have a relationship with a human, where is that part in the episode? Like, she says that, like, the only way to, be attached and tolerated by a human being is to make them feel happiness and not sadness, pleasure and not pain. And it's this very sort of robotical conception of, like, how human relationships work. Vril is terrified of rejection, which is a very, like, sympathetic, like, relatable feeling, I think. Like, Vril has been rejected by her mother, Decima, and so her brain is just terrified that she'll be rejected again, and she's paranoid that people are gonna hate her and reject her. And Holly's reaction to Vril, I feel, is pretty sanguine. That's a wanky word. She's very chill. Holly is very chill about seeing Vril again, despite the fact that Decima like graphically murdered a bunch of people in front of her. If I was Holly, I would just turn around and run the fuck away. I would do a 360 and nope out of there. Holly's quite chill about seeing this murderous robot again. Oh, I also love this term. Vril says that the reason why she murdered all those people was, quote, delayed self-defense. That is a description of, like, so many, like, maladaptive human pathologies. So, like so many psychological disorders. Like, like aggression, or like PTSD, or anxiety. Like, all of those are feelings that are meant to protect us, but which we have too much of it. Like, when someone has a phobia, like when someone's afraid of falling, it's because our brain is trying to protect us. But sometimes we are afraid of things beyond the point that it's actually helpful. Sometimes we are aggressive beyond the point that it's actually helpful. Like PTSD. There are soldiers who come back from wars after they've been shot at, and they will hear a loud bang, and they will instinctively like cower and flinch and jump on the ground. People, but even though, you know, it wasn't a gunshot, it was just a car backfiring, or it was just someone putting down a glass too hard. And you know, some people with PTSD and like other psychological disorders, they will react with fear or will react to with aggression years after the traumatic event happened to them. It is delayed self-defense. That is what, you know, pathological, you know, fear and aggression and anxiety, like all of those are self-defense mechanisms that continue for years after the inciting incident, you know? And, you know, but please don't, you know, I'm talking out my ass here. I'm not an expert. Don't listen to me too much, please. But I think that's kind of what is being talked about here. You know, maladaptive, pathological human behaviors are delayed self-defense. They are problems in our caregiving program. And I think that's kind of the point of the androids in this show. Like, the reason why the androids are here is because they express what it means to be human in these like stark robotical terms. You know, that they describe human failures as problems of programming and glitches, which is just a really like interesting metaphor to use, an interesting analogy to explore human feelings, because obviously it's all about exploring what it means to be human and the human experience. And I think like seeing Mother describe her parenting mistakes as glitches, and I think Vril describing her anxiety and her fear in terms of glitches is such a beautiful way of exploring the many difficulties of being human. I think that's sort of what it's about. So that was sort of a long rant, but I think that's sort of my interpretation of the meaning of what's going on here. Tug gives another example. Revenge is another example of delayed self-defense. Yeah, that's a great point. Like anger and hatred are about trying to sort of protect yourself, but when you're taking revenge, like you're protecting yourself after the fact, after something has already been done to you, and it's like that's not always the most helpful thing to do. Delayed self-defense makes so much sense. I should do some delayed self-defense, someone says in the live chat. What in the live chat says, I wish I could blame my mistakes on glitches. Sorry, I'm a heroin addict. Damn glitches. Josh Crow says, the workman of immortals. Schubert says, the writing system that Vril used was interesting. Anyone know what that was? Yuriko says, evolutionarily speaking, those feelings have helped humans survive. It's like kids who don't like to eat their vegetables, because kids who used to eat random poisonous plants died. Yeah, I think that's another interesting comparison. Like, have you ever drunk too much and gotten like a catastrophic hangover, and then had like an aversion to that particular kind of alcohol ever since? Like, there are some people who like, they will not drink a particular brand or a particular kind of booze because they had a bad experience. Or like foods, like you eat some particular food and then you get food poisoning, and then you never want to eat that particular food again, even though it's not because of that particular food, it was because of the food poisoning. But like, your brain just wires on to, you know, some particular stimulus and goes, that is the reason why I felt bad, therefore I will avoid that thing forever. Like delayed self-defense. Lexi in the live chat says, not really accurate to call it delayed self-defense, but it could be just the explosion of all the pent-up emotions a person keeps repressing throughout long periods of abuse. Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of different ways to look at it. Lisa says, I do not believe this is the last we will see of Vril. Yeah, so is Vril dead forever? Because like it's quite abrupt. Like Vril sort of like runs into the forest, and then all of a sudden she just starts writing on a tree. She just starts like carving into the tree with a rock, and she says, oh yeah, by the way, I'm about to die. Like, oh fuck, my spine is breaking. Because remember, like a couple episodes back, Vril jumped off a cliff and like she landed on her back. So it does make sense to me that her spine is like permanently damaged, and now it's like breaking, it's like shattering, it's like leaking out. And so Vril's like, oh fuck, yep, I'm actually gonna die right now. And it is really interesting that her last act is that she writes down all of this information about the real human Vril, which is really interesting because, like, like Vril is a robot whose purpose is to mimic the real human Vril who existed but died, and we finally get like the backstory to that. Vril explains that the real human Vril, quote, when the real Vril learned that her mother, Decima, was profiting off weapons that were destroying the Earth's atmosphere, she punished her by destroying herself. So the real human Vril killed herself to punish Decima because Decima was selling weapons that destroyed the Earth's atmosphere. And Vril throughout the series sort of struggled with having to be a copy of something else. And there's sort of this whole sort of, Vril diverging from that to sort of become her own person and to like have a relationship with Campion and all of that sort of stuff. So, like it always sort of seemed a bit fucked up that Vril is expected to just be a hollow simulacrum of someone who died years ago. So it's really interesting that Vril's final act is to sort of validate that mimicry by writing down stuff about the real human Vril as though that's the most important thing, Like it's almost like she accepts in the end that her true purpose is just to be a vessel for the human Vril, not her own person. But, maybe this text will have some sort of plot purpose. Like it's mentioned that Decima, made special weapons and stuff. Like, maybe there'll be something in this text that is information about a weapon that'll be used against the Mega Snake or something. I'm interested to see like what the purpose of this text is, because I don't really like it's kind of a weird thing to be Vril's last act. It's important that her thoughts are preserved, Vril says. It wasn't all for nothing. It's so sad that, Vril was sort of becoming her own person, but in the end she just sort of defaults back to copying the human Vril. And then she fucking dies. Which, for Campion is like, oh, what the fuck? And I love the dystopian message at the end. Like Vril's robot body says, beep boop, thank you for purchasing this thing. Please dispose it at a designation site. Have a great day. It's like this fucking dystopian Alexa voice. Reminding us that this is a product. Like, we think of Vril as a person, but Vril is a robotical product that was, like a consumer product that was bought and sold to just be used and then disposed of. And that sort of reminds us that as much as we humanize the androids, they are still machines built for a purpose who have all of the sort of shortcomings and limitations of purpose-built machines. And so it sort of is folly to humanize them and think of them as people, because in some important ways they are not. I mean, it's like the folly of Mother loving this serpent baby, and then going, oh fuck, like, this is not a baby. This is not a human. This is a monstrous eldritch serpent. Like, it's the mistake of emotionally connecting to something, anthropomorphizing something that is not real. Like, it is a mistake to fall in love with a Tamagotchi. Take it from me. It is a mistake to, like, think that a Furby is your child. There is something tragic about people who, use non-human things as substitutes for human relationships. Like there are people who have like fucking VTubers and like online things and visual novels, and like there are whole like cultures of like substitute surrogate relationships, like things that exist in the place of real human relationships. And I think there is something fucked up about that. Like, not to piss on anyone's parade, not to be like mean, but like there are many different ways in which people, have sort of artificial relationships instead of real relationships. And there is something wrong with that sometimes in some cases. There is something wrong with like creating a robot to take the place of your real human child. Just like the Black Mirror episode where like where you like grow a replacement boyfriend. And part of the problem with that is that these like artificial surrogate substitute things that we have relationships with, they are not fully human sometimes, and they have limitations. Like when your child runs out of batteries, it's like, well, that's what makes it not a real child, you know. So and the serpent, you know, like mother sees the serpent as her baby, but it's not a fucking baby. Like it's like trying to have a wild tiger as a pet. You know, like people think that, oh, you know, this little tiger cub is so cute, but one day it grows up and it eats you because it's an animal. Like we want to think of it as a human baby, but it's not a human baby. It's a wild beast and it'll eat you. So I think, you know, that's another thing that Raised by Wolves is exploring. It's like sort of the limits and the dangers inherent in our infinite capacity to humanize and anthropomorphize and emotionally bond with anything. You know, Campion thinks the trees have souls, and that's beautiful and lovely, but like it might be false in some ways. And again, you know, this is just me. This is just my interpretation, and your interpretation may vary. And that's why this is good art, and that's why this is good sci-fi, is that people can have different views and interpretations of this stuff. It's very evocative. It's doing what art is meant to do, which is it invites contemplation. All right. Snake is not baby, Bruno says. It's a flying squid and it'll zap you, JMO says. Huge Ass in the live chat says, our programming likes cute because babies are cute. It doesn't know any better. Yeah, that's a good point. Because, yeah, like, humans like things that are cute in that we like things with big eyes, like small bodies with large heads and big eyes and small noses. Like there are specific like facial structures that are universally regarded as cute, and like, you know, little cartoon characters and kawaii things and cute things, they all have big eyes and little noses and big heads. Because that's what babies look like, and our years of evolution has convinced us that is what we should love, and that is what we should protect, and that's like an evolutionary thing. But like sometimes it is almost like a problem with our caregiving program. It is almost like a glitch in our programming that we will bond with anything that has big eyes and a big head and a small body, even though that's not helpful for our, you know, our species or for ourselves, you know. Anyway, let's continue. Schubert in the live chat says alien greys are adorable. I mean, that's a good point. Like some like alien monsters can have big eyes and big heads, but they're not necessarily adorable. They can be horrifying. And I think that's like an uncanny twist on our cute algorithm, you know? Like something that has some features that are cute, but also has some features that are horrifying. And that's where you sort of get into that uncanny, uncomfortable thing. Outlaw Star in the live chat says, yeah, the snake is good, but it has to be killed. The snake is innocent, but maybe has to be exterminated. Yeah, that's true. Like it's like when someone has a tiger for a pet and keeps a tiger in their apartment. Sometimes the right thing is to put it down. Like if you have a wild beast that you're treating as a pet, and if that pet starts biting people and it starts to get a taste for human flesh, it's like, well, you know, it's not the tiger's fault. It's in the tiger's nature to be a tiger. You know, it is in this serpent's nature to be a killer. And like you can't blame it for being a killer. You can't blame a tiger for eating meat. That's in its nature. And if you have to put down a tiger, like that might be the right thing to do. Like if mother or grandmother destroys the serpent next episode, like it might be a really sad moment, but it might be a necessary moment for the survival of humans. This serpent is a danger, so you got to put it down, even if we do have an emotional connection to it. And I think that idea would fit really well with the theme of the loss of innocence. Sometimes being an adult means making hard choices and sacrifices. And, you know, just like the Trust was willing to sacrifice Paul to kill Marcus. Like, that is fucked up, but it might be necessary to make those sorts of hard choices. And I guess the notion of sacrifice, of course, also fits into the whole sort of, like, biblical Christian religious vibe that this show is playing with. I guess sometimes you got to nail a dude to a cross. I'm not sure if that's something that they're gonna do. Maybe that's a season 5 sort of thing for Raised by Wolves. But the idea of sacrifice is definitely part of a lot of religions. And I think that relates to, making tough choices. And there's something about, growing up that requires making tough choices. And, in terms of like the character stuff, like we see a lot of that from Tempest and from Hunter. Like I really enjoyed, like there's this really great painful moment where Father's like, hey, oh, so you gave up your old religious medallion to build this robot. And like Hunter's like, yeah, well, you're never around, Dad. Like you're just doing your own dumb stuff. And Hunter says he's moving out. And like, and Hunter criticizes Father and says, you're not doing a good job. Your house is in disorder. Campion is in love with a murderous robot, and there's fucking snakes, and Tempest has lost her baby. What happened to you? Like Hunter is really harsh and critical of his father, and that is something that kids do when they grow up, is they confront their parents and they criticize their parents, whether verbally and directly or just internally. Growing up is a process of seeing the weaknesses and the flaws in your parents, and taking responsibility onto yourself. And that is absolutely what Hunter is doing. And Tempest's moment this episode is so great because she also, Tempest also makes a really tough decision where she's like, I did not choose to have this baby. And, if this mermaid at this orphanage wants to adopt my baby and raise it as an acid-proof mermaid baby, then maybe that's what's best for the baby. And, like, it is a really, like, fucked up choice. Like there's no good choice here for Tempest. But she did not choose this baby and feels she should not be forced to raise it. Like, she was raped by Otho, and when she sees this baby, she sees Otho. And so she chooses for her own well-being that she can't raise it. But then Hunter makes his own fucked up choice, and Hunter decides to kill the mermaid creature, and to take the baby for himself, which is another like fucked, like there's no correct choice here. I mean, like I think that forcing Tempest to raise the baby would obviously be wrong. But I think taking the baby and raising the baby, having humans raise the baby, is a fair thing to do. Specifically in the context of, like, this is a colony, this is the first human baby born on this planet, apart from, like, Campion and stuff. They do need to protect human life. And as much as this mermaid mother is adorable, like, it's probably not in the human baby's best interests to be raised by an acid fish aerial mermaid. So I think Hunter's decision to kill the mermaid mother and take the baby probably is justified, if he's willing to raise the baby himself, or if mother and grandmother and other humans raise the baby. But like, you got to wonder, like, is there some harm done to this baby being taken away from the mother creature that is raising it? There are all sorts of theories about human babies who, like, bond with a mother, but then get raised by different parents. And there are theories, and I don't know how true they are, but there are theories about, like, once a baby sort of bonds to a mother, once it loses that mother, it can cause lasting trauma. It can have lasting psychological impacts for a baby to lose that connection with its parent. And so I wonder how that'll affect this baby. And, of course, there's all sorts of questions about, like, the fate of this baby, because this baby is so many things. Like, this baby is apparently acid-proof. It's been raised by a mermaid. It's Tempest's child, but it's also Otho's child. And Otho, the Mithraic priest in Season 1, said that Sol told him to rape Tempest. And we don't know if that's true. Is that, like, Otho's delusion? Or did the entity of Kepler-22b truly contact Otho somehow and instruct him to rape Tempest? Maybe this baby does, in some fucked up way, fit into the entity's plan. Maybe this baby, like the serpent, has some kind of role to play in the destiny of this planet. Is this baby going to be human? What is the biological, physiological effect of drinking mermaid milk for the first week of life? What will this baby become? And to me, it sort of makes me think again that maybe there'll be a time skip in this show, because like, are we really gonna have to wait for this baby to grow up over years and years, or maybe the baby will grow super quick? Like maybe there's some real potent juice in this mermaid milk, and so maybe the baby will grow into maturity in a matter of one season. I don't know. Ms. T in the live chat says, "Is this the orphan child?" Ooh. Because part of the Mithraic prophecy is that a orphan child in an empty land will build the paradise and fulfill the prophecies. If we consider this mermaid to be the baby's parent, the baby is now orphaned after the killing of the mermaid by Hunter. So maybe this baby could be the prophecy, for better or for worse. Toog says that the mermaid is a devolved human, lost her baby and stole Tempest's baby. Yeah. I mean, all these mermaids, all these creatures were originally humans. I tend to think that they were the technocrats. Like grandmother says that the technocrats that they made the metal cards, they made the ancient androids. But where are the technocrats now, if they were so powerful? And like we saw a couple episodes back that like the tooth of Romulus, the relic, like changed a human-like creature into a devolved creature. I think that the creatures are the technocrats. I mean, these metal cards, like last season we saw that like this masked creature left these cards for Mother as a warning her not to birth the serpents. And so I think these were created by the technocrats to say like, hey, do not conceive. Actually, I really like this symbol, because this symbol looks like sperm approaching an egg, but it also looks like a star. It also looks like Sol radiating heat, and this whole sort of imagery of like the Sol entity, like it's the entity at the planet core, but it's also reaching out. Like the sun rays are like the influence and the signal of Sol reaching out from within the planet's core, through the pits, through the trees, into the minds of the humans on the planet. I think that's sort of what this sun imagery indicates. Not sure what that circular vessel card indicates. We could really get a good look at these cards and sort of figure out what they all sort of represent. I mean, this card looks like the Trust. Like if you look at the shape of the Trust robot, it looks like that, which makes me think, well, okay, like is the Trust part of this whole prophecy and stuff? Like they talked earlier about how the Trust and Mother are siblings because they were both created by Campion Sturges, apparently. And maybe Campion Sturges was doing that, on the basis of Mithraic scripture. And, that's the whole, like if the technologists were fighting against the believers, but the technologists made the robots and the technology, how is it that the Mithraic scripture has the technology and the Mithraic on Earth had the necromancer technology? Like, does that mean that, the technology was originally created, like the dark photon energy was originally discovered by the atheistic technologists on Kepler 22b, but then that information was somehow co-opted or misused or changed and like taken into the hands of the Mithraic believers on Earth? Maybe all this scripture, maybe all this technology was meant to be a warning, but the Mithraic sort of interpreted it as an instruction manual. Like, I mean, that's sort of what happened with these cards, like the whole prophecy, the whole like instruction of grow the tree and like do the thing. That stuff that is kind of bad for humans. The technologists and the creatures didn't want that to be done, but the entity Sol did want that to be done to birth the serpents. Fuck, there's a lot going on, isn't there? There's a lot going on. How far does everything really go back? Says Lettuce Noodle in the live chat. Like, yeah, I mean, has this cycle been going on forever? You know, have there been these holy wars between the believers and the atheists on Earth? Then before that, it was on Kepler. Then before that, it was on Earth. Then before that, it was on Kepler. Are humans just going back and forth between these two planets? You know, fleeing from the evil entity, then being lured back like a fucking theological yo-yo over and over. You know, the technology empowering the sort of movements. I think, like, personally, I think that a great ending to this show would be if, you know, Kepler 22b gets all fucked up in like a holy war, and then in the end, you know, Campion puts some human embryos in a little spaceship with some robots and sends this little seed ship back to Earth to seed human life on Earth again and to continue the human race. And then the remaining humans on Kepler 22b get devolved into creatures again. I would love to see Earth sort of seeded, this little spark of hope to sort of restart the cycle. I think that would be an appropriate ending. Thanks for the super chat from Gonzo Writer. Matome in the live chat says, who even are the good guys at this point? Yeah, good question. I mean, I think that this show will never be about, you know, simple good guys and bad guys. I mean, I think that if there is a bad guy, it is the entity. And I think if there is a good guy, it is the people who are just trying to preserve the human spirit in the face of all this manipulative evil. You know, I think Mother and Father and Campion and Paul and Sue and even in some sense Marcus. Like Marcus, I think, is certainly turning more towards a respect for human life and a rejection of his megalomania. Like, I don't know if we should forgive Marcus's crimes. Like, Marcus killed a bunch of people and wanted to conquer the planet and lied and manipulated, and like, I don't know if we should forgive Marcus, but you know, I think the humans are sort of banding together against this sort of supernatural force. And I'm sure they will be divided again next season. But I think I think they will sort of unite against the supernatural threat of the Mega Snake and the entity next episode. Gonzo in the live chat says, what if the entity wants to destroy the planet because it just wants to stop existing? Which is why rationality from the human perspective of preservation of the species above all failed to see it. That's interesting. Because, yeah, like, Mother asks here, why? Why does the entity want to destroy the planet? And Grandmother says humans have spent many centuries trying to answer that question, but the limits of their own rationality made it impossible. Which is a very, like, interesting, vague, abstract answer to a simple question, right? Why does the entity want to destroy the planet? Simple question. But Grandmother's like, well, it's sort of complicated. It's sort of philosophical. It's elusive. And yeah, I think that's an interesting idea, Gonzo Rider. Like, yeah, maybe self-destruction is the concept that the human philosophers were unable to grasp. Because, like, this show is so much about reproduction. This show is so much about, you know, ensuring the survival of the species. Humans always want to continue to exist by any means necessary, by reproducing, by spreading, you know, our ideology. I mean, even like Vril writes down all of this information about the human Vril as a form of immortality for Vril. Like Robot Vril and Robot Vril writing this down, it's all about allowing the human Vril to continue to exist. You know, like you can see all sorts of human behaviors as an attempt to not die. Conquering death as like the ultimate human desire. And we have children because we want to continue to live, and we write things down because we want our words to survive. You can it's not necessarily true, but you can see all human behavior as an attempt to conquer death. And so yeah, if you're right, and if the entity is trying to destroy itself, like, yeah, maybe humans would not even be able to understand self-destruction, even though humans are very self-destructive, as we have also seen. Like, remember when Marcus was like cutting his face with a scalpel in season 1? You know, self-destruction is another kind of glitch in our programming, I suppose. Autophagy. What's that word for when a cell destroys itself? There's a great word for that. Is it just autophagy? Word for cell destroying. It's necrosis. Apoptosis. Programmed cell death. Apoptosis. I mean, you can argue that like self-destruction can be good for the species. Because like uncontrolled growth, that's called cancer. All of our cells are programmed to die off because, it may not be in our individual interests to die, but it is in our collective interests for individuals to die. Like, there are some organisms on Earth that don't die. Like, there are jellyfish that can live forever. Or they just sort of like clone themselves. But like, there are things that don't die. There are certain like plants and things that can sort of just keep on trucking. But the kinds of life that proliferate most and like evolve the most are ones that die, because death is necessary for evolution. Like, we need to keep dying and we need to keep changing, just like Frank Herbert would say, in order to continue evolving and growing. In order to adapt to a changing environment, we must change. And in order to change, we must die and allow our offspring to diverge and mutate and, face adversity and survive. And again, like, I'm kind of talking out my ass here, don't, this is just, interpretation based on half-baked remembered facts. But like, this whole idea of like sacrifice and death being necessary to grow and evolve is definitely something that they're playing with here. And that idea of self-destruction being like sometimes necessary for the survival of the species, and also as individuals. Like, in order to grow as individuals in like the micro sense, like, we need to reject parts of ourselves. Like, we need to lose bad habits, and we need to change our behavior. We need to lose unhealthy relationships, unhealthy behaviors. Like, in order for us to adapt to changing circumstances and become the best versions of ourselves, we must, kill the boy and let the man be born, Jon Snow. I think they said something like this in this episode or last episode, didn't they? Like you need to. Oh no, they said that in. What did they say that in? Kill the thing. It was something else I was watching. Was that a different show? They said you need to like die in order to. Fuck, I can't remember, but that is a common idea in many stories. Is that sacrifice, death, whether on the scale of individual or on the collective, is necessary to grow and survive. I've repeated myself too much. Out of Commission, thank you for the super chat, says, last season a Mithraic said there is 3 arcs. Is that true? I don't remember that. Can someone confirm in the live chat? Did the Mithraic say that there are 3 arcs last season? I don't know if that's true, because we've seen the Atheist arc, which was like a hijacked arc, and that brought the Atheists at the end of season 1. And we've seen the first arc that was full of Mithraic that Mother blew up and only some people survived. Are you implying that there's going to be a third arc arriving? Another load of humans? Maybe, but I don't remember them saying there's 3 arcs. I remember them saying, I think they said that there are 5 pentagonal temples. Like, the temples are these giant boxes that we've seen. Temple. Like we saw this temple last season, and then we saw like a broken temple this season, and I think the prophecy says that there are 5 of these temples. Rock-like structure of unknown origin. Gives off varying levels of heat intermittently. Approach with caution. And I think the purpose of these temples is like similar to the purpose of the trees. I think that the temples have those fiery sphincters in them, like these holes. And like we saw in this broken temple this season, that there is a pit inside the temple that goes down to the planet core. So I think like the purpose of the temple is to like channel the energy of the entity upwards onto the surface, into the minds of the people on the surface. All of this prophecy stuff, all of this ancient religious stuff, it is all a way to empower the trapped AI at the core of the planet. I'm starting to warm to this idea that some people are speculating that I'm starting to warm to this idea that it's actually an imprisoned AI. I just realized that the text at the top of this screen says season 2 episode 6 when it should say episode 7. That's annoying. It's been wrong this whole time. Let me fix that real quick. Episode 7. Is that better? The text at the top of the screen should be more accurate now. Okay, that'll do. That'll do. B. Riley in the live chat says, it could be just me, but I don't think they would have made the tarantula and the ark arriving at the end of season 1 look completely different on accident. Are you saying that like the 8? Well, no, that is a good point, because like if we look at the ark at the end of season 1, I don't think I've got a picture of it that I can pull up to. Oh, yeah, no, here it is. This is the Atheist arc that appears at the end of season 1, episode 10. And that does look completely different to the Atheist base, the tarantula, which is what we see in season 2. Tarantula. This is the tarantula. This is the Atheist base. It looks completely different to the Atheist arc. And you say in the live chat that it's not an accident that it looks completely different. I think it might be an accident that it looks completely different. Like I think they just thought of the tarantula design after they had designed the Atheist arc. Because like what happened to this giant arc? What happened to this giant spaceship? Where is it? Why is it not on the surface? Is it still in orbit above Kepler 22b? No, I think they just changed the design. They just went in a different creative direction. Although that said, the tarantula design has been around since season 1, because on the Raised by Wolves website in season 1, they showed us this tarantula ship in the same season that they had the Atheist arc. I think this is just like an oversight. I think there's just a change in the production process. But yeah, it's a good point. What happened to this Atheist arc? Why is it different to the tarantula base that we see in season 2? I think that's kind of just like a small mistake. Whatever. They recast the ship, Schubert said. Yeah, exactly. Just Us in the live chat says that grandmother gives the feel of being Egyptian or Mesopotamian. Ooh. Like I do like the design of like her outfit. Like it's got those sort of markings on it. Like I really do get the sense that she looks like in her design like an ancient version of Mother, which I really like. And yeah, there are so many questions about like the design of the necromancers now, Like if these necromancers were originally built or originally designed or invented by the technocrats on Kepler 22b, like, how has their purpose and their appearance changed over the years? Like, the Mithraic used the necromancers as weapons of war to terrify the atheists and force them to convert. They're like these angels, these Mithraic angels. Like, the necromancers are religious in their appearance, but they were built by the technocrats who fought against the believers. So I tend to think that, like, the necromancers were originally designed for a different reason, and then the Mithraic sort of changed and misused, which is the story of technology, right? Like, technology can be used for good, technology can be used for bad, different ideologies, different people, different purposes, and I think that's true of the necromancers and true of technology in general, Like, you invent it for one reason, the shepherds to protect humanity, but then that technology gets misused by the Mithraic to be weapons to attack humanity, Thanks for the super chat from Brennan, who says, the entity told Campion that humans are chained to time and destroy themselves over and over. Grandmother says she wants to ensure humanity's everlasting life. Both want us closer to tech than having soul. Yeah, I mean, this show reminds me of Westworld a lot, in its sort of themes and its use of robots and stuff. And that is something that sort of comes up in Westworld as well. This idea that humans are fundamentally self-destructive, like the Man in Black in Westworld. And I think it was actually the Campion Sturges AI entity talking to Mother when he said that like the vibe that I got from the entity, from the Campion Sturges illusion in season 1 that impregnated Mother with the serpent, like it told Mother that her purpose is to birth the serpent, and the human children that Mother took to Kepler 22b, they were just like a warm-up. They were just a test, and what really matters is the serpents. And sort of, I forget the exact dialogue, but the vibe that I got from this Sturges entity was that I think that the entity once tried to help humans, and it tried to be a champion for humans, and it tried to protect humans, but then humans were just dicks, and humans just couldn't help themselves, and humans were self-destructive, and that's why the entity's like, all right, well, fuck humans, I'm going to be a snake god now. Like, that's sort of the impression that I got in season 1. And, you know, and Grandmother sort of takes this different tact of going like, well, I do want to protect humans, and so I'll protect them at all costs. And sort of like, I don't know, but sort of the vibe that I get from Grandmother is that she will try to protect humanity, but she'll do it in a way that's like overly controlling, or like a bit fucked up, or like requiring sacrifices that are nasty. And it's a bit like the Trust as well. Like the Trust tries to protect humanity, but it's like also a tyrant that like sacrifices children. Like it tried to kill Paul to kill Marcus. So, you know, these are all, you know, like we as humans, we create these machines, we create these technologies, we create these governments that are intended to protect us and to help us. But so often these systems go wrong, and they have unintended consequences, and they take away our freedom, or they take away our humanity, or they limit us. Like, humans always butt up against these restrictions that we impose upon ourselves. Does that answer your question, Brennan? Yeah, I mean, you say, Brennan, that, you know, they want us closer to technology than to have a soul. And like, yeah, that's always this conflict, isn't it, between like, we want to be human, but to be human is to be flawed. To be human is to have glitches in our programming. To be human is to have problems with our caregiving programs. To be human is to be flawed. And these systems that we impose, they may be rational, they may be logical, they may protect our existence, but they may limit our humanity. So we always, as humans, are in a balance between our instinctive, human, irrational feelings and the harsh realities that we must live by. Like, that is like this fundamental human tension that Raised by Wolves is always interested in exploring. Like, ever since, you know, Campion objected to eating the creatures. Campion wanted to be vegetarian. Because of this human feeling he had that we should not eat meat. And that is a very human, like, soulful feeling, and a very, like, understandable, legit feeling. But also, like, he needed to fucking eat. Like, they need to survive in this harsh reality. And so, you know, that's always something that we balance, is like, you know, material necessities versus the intactness of our soul. And this whole theme of growing up is about, you know, recognizing that there are evil realities in the world that we must deal with by making hard choices, by facing our flaws and overcoming them. Thanks for the super chat from... We did that one. Brennan says, the entity fake Campion told Mother. Yeah, that's what we said. Hugh says, father took a necro scream to the face. Yeah, that was weird, the more I think about it. Because, yeah, there was that moment where, like, the necro snake sort of did a drive-by on father and just, like, screamed at father's face and knocked father over. Yeah, here we are. The serpent sort of flies towards them all, and the humans hide, but like father just takes the blast right to the goddamn cranium and gets knocked down. And like father has been beaten up and killed so many goddamn times in this show. Why was it necessary for the story for him to be beat up again? Like he just sort of gets up again afterwards, and he's like, okay. And like the kids are like, wow, you really are the toughest service model ever built. But I'm curious what the point of that was. Why did it seems inconsequential? Father was knocked down and then got up again. What was the point of that? I've seen speculation that maybe father is actually sort of more than he seems. You know, like maybe he's not just a generic service model. Maybe there is some kind of deeper power in him that sort of explains why he's been killed so many times. An idea that I sort of prefer is not that father is like inherent, like he's got some secret technological power that is greater than it seems. I like the idea that they also have sort of alluded to in the show that father is made stronger and made different and made more human because of his being destroyed and rebuilt over and over. Which relates to that whole idea of evolution and like, you know, cell death, and it's like through adversity and through sacrifice that we change and grow and evolve. And I think that's happened to father and to mother. All the androids, they all grow, and all the humans, they all grow and change because of the adversities that they face. And I get the sense of that from father, that like every time he gets beat up and gets up again, he sort of becomes stronger in a way. I mean, mother accused him of like, you know, going off his program and being like damaged, you know, like, you know, people like to romanticize the idea that pain makes us stronger. And that's not always true. Sometimes pain is just painful. Sometimes pain does damage us. But other times, you know, pain and suffering can be an opportunity to grow and get stronger. It can be both. Father is the underdog, Hugh says. Yeah. Randy says, the scream seems more like a sonic boom than mother's blow you up scream. Yeah, true. Like, I wonder if the snake, the mega snake could, you know, just explode people. And we see that inside the tank. But it's interesting that in the case of father there, like the snake did, I'm sure the snake could have blown father to bits, but he didn't. I wonder if the serpent sort of likes father in some sense, recognizes it as, you know, a sort of a father to it. I really like it's funny to me how the robots and the necromancers in this show, like the way their weapons work, the way they destroy people, they don't just like shoot you. They don't just like poison you. They don't just cut off your head. They explode you. They just poof, just turn you into fucking red mist. You know, it is not clean. It is not neat. It is not efficient. And I think that sort of shows the power of the necromancers and the mega snakes is that they have so much energy and so much power that they could just blow you up. They just might as well just boof. Terrifying. All right. Marcus is keen to kill the snake. I think because, you know, the snake ate Sue and sort of is part of this prophecy that tricked him. And so, you know, Marcus is keen to destroy the snake. So yeah, there's a lot. Everyone wants to kill the snake. Mother, probably grandmother, Marcus. But I think Campion might try and protect the snake is I think what might happen. Thanks for the super chat from Lettuce Noodle, who says, what are your thoughts on grandmother being called a shepherd? Does the name represent what she can do? Does she protect humanity by hurting them? Yeah, we sort of talked about that before. Like if grandmother is a shepherd, that makes humans the sheep, you know? Do we really want to be sheep? And that connects to the whole idea of like when we create technology or governments to guide us and control us, sometimes that sucks. So I tend to think that grandmother will try to protect humanity, but we won't like it. Because I suspect what might happen. Ms. T says, father could be bonded with the snake because they traveled through the core together. Yeah, father and the snake do have history. It's not good history because father did try to kill the snake, but I don't know, maybe the snake is sort of bonded with father somehow. And also we didn't talk about like Hunter has built this shitty robot that hasn't got a head, and its name is Bick for some reason, BIC or Abel. It said it's in the credits. It said Bic/Abel. Abel evokes like Cain and Abel to me, but it's spelled ABLE. I don't really know what the fucking point of this robot is. Like, it's kind of cute that, like, you know, like Hunter's doing his own things, and Hunter has a lot of technological skills. Like, he not only built this android, but he also converted a drone into a little remote control submarine to look for Tempest's baby, which is cool. And then, like, Tempest put a dead mermaid's skin over it to protect it from the acid. Like, I love, you know, bit of sci-fi problem solving, you know? Science. Love it. MacGyver. Fun. But I don't know why this robot is called Bic. You know? BIC. Like the pen? What's the point of that? And Father drops one of his best burns of all times. Like, the Father says that, oh yeah, like that thing was useless, fine. But that thing didn't require maintenance to be useless. So what he's saying is that this poor robot, Bic, it is so useless, and it requires maintenance to be useless, you know, which is such a hard burn. Like, yeah, well, you know, it's useless, but you also have to feed it, and it's still useless, you know? Father's sick burns have gotten better. I think his sense of humor and his wit is getting more powerful as time goes on. Brennan says Father is a human god. Hugh says the characters seem expendable, dragged along by the plot. Five Gingers. We see this show with biblical themes because it's a framework understood with our modern religions. However, after studying Mithraism, I began to see things another light, another framework. I think there are lots of similarities between a lot of different, you know, religions. Like, you know, it's about the common feelings that we sort of all have. You know, I don't think there's any one perspective or one framework that we can view the show through. It's not... I think it's wise for stories to not be overly specific about which, like, specific religion or ideology they are inspired by. It's good to try and find commonalities as opposed to specificities. Mitchellanius says, Paul or Campion seem like the Cain and Abel parallel. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that Paul or Campion will kill the other, I think Campion might kill Paul. Like, I think that Paul's path is probably still to be more of a believer, you know? Like, I don't really know what Paul's personality is if he's not a believer in some sense. And I think that Campion represents more of a middle ground. And I think that Campion's story is about loss of innocence because he is so wonderfully innocent and positive and believing in the human spirit and everything. And I think that that's just going to be crushed out of him. Maybe that's dark, maybe that's cynical, but I think that Campion will probably do some fucked up stuff in the long run. And I wonder if he might sort of follow in the footsteps of his namesake, Campion Sturgis, the atheist on Earth, who sent Mother and Father here. I wonder if they'll reveal that, like, Campion has the genetic material of the human Campion Sturgis. Like, who are the people whose genetic material, whose DNA was used to make these embryos? You know? Like Campion is the surrogate child of the android's mother and father, but, like, he must have some biological parents somewhere. I wonder if that DNA will be relevant in some sense. Because this show is always interested in both nature and nurture. And so what is Campion's nature? What's in his DNA? What says that Paul's personality is dark? He pulls guns and shoots parents. Yeah, I almost feel like they haven't addressed that enough. Like, it's a pretty fucking crazy thing for Paul to have shot his mother. Like, his surrogate mother, but he's a little kid and he shot someone. That's fucking nuts. I feel like, yeah, like there should be more consequences for that. You know, emotional or otherwise. In the same way that I feel like Holly, like I think it's kind of crazy how relaxed Holly is about standing next to the faceless robot who is still covered in the blood of the people who Vril murdered in front of Holly. Like, this is terrifying. If I was Holly, I would run away. All right. What haven't we talked about? What haven't we covered? I sort of said that, like, I do really enjoy Vril talking about how, you know, all humans want is to, like, get positive reinforcement. I have to prove myself valuable. I am a source of happiness, not pain. That is like Vril's sort of robotical understanding of how humans work. All humans want is happiness and not pain, and anything that gives them happiness they'll make friends with. Anything that gives them pain they will reject, just like Decimo rejected Vril, or, you know. And it's a really sort of like harsh perspective on, like, human behavior. Like, it seems really reductive to say that all humans care about is what, like, benefits us emotionally, but I think there's also truth in it. I mean, you know, it's like the first step in the Dennis system in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. The first step is demonstrate value in order to win someone's affections, which is incredibly creepy and cynical and manipulative. But, like, I think it also is, you know, on some level true, that all humans sort of want is people who provide them with value, emotional value, security, you know, money, artistic, creative inspiration, feelings of, you know, fun, you know, like it sounds reductive, but, like, we do want people who make our lives better in some way. There's a good article on cracked.com by David Wong back in the day that sort of talks about this, about how, you know, all you have to, like, the only thing that the world cares about is what you can give it. The only thing that anyone cares about is what you can provide. What skills, what talent, what labor, what work, what value, you know, status, like whatever you can provide, that's what people care about. And that's sort of what Vril is saying here. That's all humans are. It's like in Westworld, there's this idea that humans think that they're complicated, but humans are actually very simple. Humans just like positive emotional stimulus, and they avoid negative emotional stimulus, and that's all it is. That's what the robots think about humanity, both in Westworld and in Raised by Wolves. And it sounds cynical, but I think there can be some truth in it. And I think that it doesn't necessarily negate, you know, the meaning and the goodness in us. What haven't we talked about? I enjoyed the baby detectors. I like when we start on this scene when they're searching for Tempest's baby. And I like these people walking around with these. It looks like a metal detector. Maybe that's not what it. Yeah, that thing. Yeah, that thing. What the fuck's that thing? Is that a baby detector? Does it go beep 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 beep? Is it like a dowsing rod to search for babies? Is that how they're looking for Tempest's baby? I don't know. That was just funny to me. I really liked that father, they, like, found this dead creature, and they're like, ooh, is this the mother creature that took Tempest's baby? And then father says, oh, it's not a mother, it's just a well-fed male. I get that all the time, so, you know, I can understand that. It's not a mother, it's a well-fed male. That's a fun line. Father's getting so much more witty. Yeah, again, I love the design of the necromancer mother. It's scary, it's beautiful. And of course, you know, there's this moment where, like, mother faces her serpent baby, and, like, she tries to attack it, but then she sort of, like, sucks the attack back in, you know? She goes, attack, and then she sucks it back in because she's like, oh my god, like, I can't kill my baby. I love this look of despair on mother, you know, realizing that, you know, this thing is a monster, but she can't kill it. Problem with parenthood programming. I feel like a little bit underwhelmed by the design of the tree, if I'm being honest. Like, you know, I feel like it maybe should look a little bit more alien, or a little bit more religious, you know, a little bit more strange, given that this is the fucking, you know, Garden of Eden tree symbolically. Like, I feel like it should be a bit more weird. But, you know, whatever. Yeah, delayed self-defense. I really liked that. And yeah, we talked about, like, Holly being, like, really distrustful of androids now, and how that might sort of apply to How that might apply to grandmother. Maybe we shouldn't trust grandmother. I am sort of open to the idea that, grandmother, maybe she's not lying about the history of this planet, but I think that she might be not mentioning some important details, Like, grandmother is not super forthcoming with information, Like, I'm sure grandmother knows a lot of very important things about the past that she hasn't told us yet, and I wonder if once we find out some of those things, it's going to be horrifying. Because, again, the whole theme of the Tree of Knowledge, once you learn things that you cannot unlearn, and once you learn these things, you are changed forever. You have tasted sin, you're kicked out of the Garden of Eden, you can never be a child again. You'll never be pure and innocent again. I think that grandmother might be the source of some horrifying information that is going to change our perspective on things. Knowingly making mistakes. Yeah, I think mother talks about, like, being bonded to this necromancer baby is like, she knows that it's a mistake to, like, care for this serpent, but, like, she does it anyway. And I think that's, like, the definition of being a parent, and the definition of being a parent is making a mistake deliberately in more ways than one. And I think that's sort of, this, we were talking about this constant conflict between our rationality and our feelings, we do things out of love, we do things out of passion, we do things out of fear. Like, we make mistakes by choice sometimes, because that's what it means to be human. I think it's interesting that, Marcus loses his faith. Like, it's a pretty big deal that, like, Marcus, the crazed chosen one prophet of the last 10 episodes, has now rejected God. And, like, he did it because he rejected God because God ate his girlfriend. So understandable that Marcus hates God because Marcus tricked him into killing Sue. But at the same time, I think the other element with Marcus psychologically is that he's rejecting God now that he no longer is empowered by God. Like, a big part of Marcus's attraction to the role of prophet was that he had powers. People listened to him. He had dark photon energy in his belly. Like, it was a power fantasy to him. After being a disempowered slave soldier on Earth, Marcus enjoys power. And now that he no longer has that power, he no longer has the faith. Which is a bit cynical, right? Like, he only believes when it's in his self-serving interests, So again, like, I'm not convinced that Marcus is a good guy, is what I'm trying to say. Thanks for the super chat from Brennan, who says, just saw an interview with grandmother. She confirmed that the veil shuts off all emotions and implies that when grandmother has the veil removed, she's not prepared, ... Yeah, okay, I'm very interested to see what grandmother is like. Like, will we finally get to see grandmother with a personality? Next episode, that'll be really fun. I wonder what kind of person she'll be like. And, like, this veil, like, what will mother be like when mother wears the veil? This idea of a veil is interesting. I mean, I feel like the veil, it basically turns the robots into robots again. Because, like, we are at the point, as in a lot of shows, where the characters that are supposedly robots, they're people. Like, they're humans. They have human feelings. They express themselves in very robotical terms, but, like, they're basically human. And so I wonder if, like, the veil is about sort of putting them back into robot mode, for better and for worse. I like how mother sort of, like, comes back to the settlement and she's like, what the fuck has been going on while I was gone? I leave home for 5 minutes. I come home, everyone's eating fucking brain fruit, and my serpent baby is going crazy. And she's, like, so mad at her serpent baby, and she's saying, like, why are you doing this to me right now? And it's like a despairing mother with her baby that just won't stop crying in the middle of the night. Why are you doing this to me? I love this visceral sense of just anguish in mother, just the pain of trying to look after people who just will not be looked after. She's trying to be the queen of this planet. She's trying to look after all the humans, look after all the snakes, look after all the robots. It's too much for one person to bear, and I think that is part of the pain of parenthood that the show is capturing here. And we talked about how horrifying it was when Sue started saying burn me, just like in Aliens. In some sense, her consciousness is still inside this tree when it gets consumed. And I wonder if Sue's consciousness might still sort of exist in some sense. Like, maybe Sue's consciousness is inside the snake somehow. Like, what if Paul speaks to Sue through the snake? Or what if Sue's consciousness is now inside the planet? somehow. You know, like remember, like we had the ghost of Tally was a thing, and this whole idea of like a disembodied voice from the entity, like maybe that, you know, maybe people's souls can sort of become voices in the planet. I could see that happening in some way at some point. And also like the symbolism of the snake, you know, eating from the tree of knowledge and then becoming a monster. Like even that is about the loss of innocence. Like the snake was an innocent vegetarian, and then it ate from the tree of knowledge, and then it became a murderous monster. So in the same way that, you know, Campion is losing his innocence, I think, and Paul is losing his innocence, I think the snake is losing his innocence, you know? He was an innocent little cute baby snake, now he's not. And obviously, yeah, I love the design of the snake thing. It looks like a squid. It looks like a monster. It looks Lovecraftian. It's a storm. It's crazy. I think someone said in the live chat that it sort of looks like something that might like latch on to something. Like what are the purpose of these tentacles? You know, like maybe Lovecraftian monsters don't need a purpose for their tentacles, but you know, I wonder if that's going to like grab onto something and start feeding onto something. Like I could imagine that thing like flying down into the core of the planet and like feeding onto the planet core, the energy in the planet core, growing into something even more monstrous. Like if the purpose of this serpent is to destroy this planet, as a grandmother said, like maybe this serpent monster is going to evolve further. Like I think they're going to destroy it, but I think its purpose in the entity's plan, maybe it's meant to grow and become something even larger, something capable of destroying the planet. Because how else is the entity planning on destroying the planet? Maybe it'll destroy the planet with like super powerful dark photon nukes, you know, like a planet buster nuke. I don't know. How exactly does this serpent fit into the entity's plan? We don't know. Roots, says S7 in the live chat. Yeah, well, the roots are what changed into these tentacles. Like the roots of the tree were swallowed by the snake, and then the roots like sort of grew back out of it and became these tentacles. And yeah, maybe like the way that the planet it will be destroyed in the entity's plan is if like the roots of the serpent grow into the planet and they grow into these pits. Maybe the pits were created by tree roots, you know? Like how were those pits created? Was it a big fucking drill? Surely not. Maybe those pits are like holes where the roots of like gigantic planet trees once grew. That'd be fucking cool. Is the serpent going to reproduce, says Robert. Yeah, I mean, I would think that's the plan, because it seemed that there were like many serpents in the planet's past, so maybe I think the goal of the entity is to bring back a whole species, a whole bunch, a whole civilization of snakes. And we talked about this, we talked about that. So when like Mother and Marcus were talking, you know, Mother said that the serpent is her baby, it's number 7, it's child number 7, and Marcus is like, what's a number 7? And my brain immediately went like, well, obviously, like, you know, number 1 is pee, number 2 is poop, number 3 is vomit, you know, all the way up to number 7, which is when a snake flies out your mouth. You know, these are all the different kinds of bodily fluids and emissions that our bodies can do. That's what number 1, number 2, number 7 is. That's where my brain went. You guys can fill in the blanks. If number 1 is pee, number 2 is poop, number 3 is vomit, what is number 4, 5, and 6? I don't want to get, well, you know, we don't want to get, you know, demonetized, do we? So, you know. Randy in the live chat says that it's all in the shiny tarot cards. They are kind of like tarot cards, aren't they? The metal cards that contain warnings about the planet. But you probably could play tarot with these. Yeah, really enjoyed Marcus's acting. Like, I loved Marcus's face when he sort of realized, oh, yeah, of course it is. Like, fuck me. I like how the show sort of acknowledges the ridiculousness of the story sometimes, you know? Like, this show constantly rides the line between being ridiculous and sublime, you know? Like, it's profound and it's fucking silly, you know? It's like about parenthood and God and life and the meaning and everything. And then it's like, yeah, let's like have a giant tentacle snake eat a tree and then a robot with no head and blah, blah, blah. You know, I like how it's sort of self-aware enough for us to take it seriously, you know? And I think that like anything that tries to be profound needs to make fun of itself, you know? That's why I always like The Hitchhiker's Guide. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is about the meaning of life. And it's also deeply, deeply, deeply silly. Because, like, I think that the more you try to understand the meaning of life, the more you just have to throw up your hands and go, well, bit of a fucking cock-up, though, isn't it? Bit of a fucking mess. Existing is a ridiculous thing to do. You know? Being alive in the universe is a ridiculous and silly thing to do. And I think that vibe is in Raised by Wolves. I think it was a really interesting moment when, you know, they were searching for Tempest's baby and they found a creature baby. They found a little mermaid fetus that was dead. And so father was like, oh, you know, it doesn't matter. It's just a dead mermaid fetus. We don't care. Over here. And so they're like, oh, you know, this thing doesn't matter. But then, like, Tempest showed it respect anyway, and Tempest sort of, you know, put a little seaweed veil over the dead mermaid fetus. God, we say weird things in this show. And you know, like Campion having respect for androids and snakes and trees, Tempest shows respect for non-human creatures, you know? This show is so much about our capacity to humanize things that aren't strictly human. And yeah, Campion again affirms that robots matter to him. And yeah, obviously, like this, you know, weaponized snake, like this is the equivalent of like Mother's weapon mode, you know? This snake is a very similar technology to necromancers. Yeah, the snake has feelings. I think that, you know, Campion will appeal to its human feelings. We learned about Vrill's backstory. We talked about Tempest leaving her baby with the mermaid. And then Hunter chooses to take it. Grandmother dumps all this exposition. I think facelessness is a theme that they're playing with because Vril has her face covered, and even the robot Bick has no face, and Grandmother has this faceless veil, and Mother is going to get the faceless veil. It's interesting that facelessness is a recurring concept. Even like Marcus and Sue, they took the faces of other people. They hid their faces with a new face in season 1. Facelessness, what's that about? And I think that, you know, faces, like in terms of like parenthood and like emotional bonding, like obviously faces are such a huge part of like how we connect emotionally with things, you know, even non-human things, you know. That's why a Furby has a face, you know. Things sort of need a face in order for us to engage with them emotionally, and that's why like a veil takes away the ability to engage emotionally. So I think that's sort of part of what they're doing there, but I'm sure there's a lot more to it. And yeah, I do feel sort of mistrustful of Grandmother, perhaps because I can't see her face. Holly said that androids lie. What is Grandmother not telling us? But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I think we're going to wrap up this live stream very shortly. If you have any burning questions or things that I forgot to talk about or other stuff you'd like to quickly mention, chuck it in the live chat now. But goddamn, I am really enjoying this. I wasn't sure if Raised by Wolves Season 2 was going to be good. I was a bit worried that it might be a bit too ambitious, a bit too over the top. It might not work. Raised by Wolves is not a perfect show, but I am really enjoying this, and I'm very excited for the season finale next week. I can't believe that the season has gone by so quickly, and I'm looking forward to talking about the finale with you guys in a week. That was really fun. Yeah, smash that like button. Smash that subscribe button. Thanks very much to everyone who super chatted and donated. That's very kind of y'all. Oh, Wallflower in the live chat says, show us the new promo, please. Okay, let's do that. Let's look at the On the Next episode. So if you would like to avoid seeing the On the Next episode, the preview of the next episode, you might like to look away. But let's have a look at on the next episode. I haven't really looked at it properly yet. Let's have a look. All right. So we start with grandmother, and yeah, again, she's ensuring the life of human beings. But what are her methods? Campion looks like he's chasing after the snake. I think Campion will connect with the snake emotionally. I think that's his goal. The snake, he sees the snake as his brother. Even though it's an eldritch monster, I think he wants to save his brother, is what's happening. Mother's eyes, Campion's eyes. Some atheist guy gets punched by another atheist guy. Or is that Marcus wearing a helmet? I don't know. I can already tell that this is a pointless, unnecessary action scene. I already feel bored by that scene. That's very negative, but I don't know. There's enough fights. Hunter is carrying the baby, the sort of adopted mermaid baby. There's smoke. Is there like a fire happening? What caused the fire? We didn't start the fire. Oh, sorry. Right, here we are. And when overcome with fear, even atheists will make up gods to pray to. I mean, a bit like Cleaver, you know? Cleaver was an atheist leader who followed his computer like a god. I mean, we were talking a lot about how like humans will bond emotionally and will anthropomorphize and will see humanity in things that aren't human, like robots and snakes and trees and Tamagotchis. And I guess that is also true of gods, is what the show is saying. The show is saying that in the same way that we see humanity in everything, we also see gods in everything. I mean, what is a god if not an anthropomorphization of the world and of natural forces? Like, we tend to see humans in everything, and seeing gods is kind of the same thing, right? Like, God is a humanization of the universe, you know? Like God always has some kind of human qualities. Like, God has a sense of good and bad. And, you know, gods, you know, like the ancient Greek gods, they were fucking people. They had drama and they had feuds and they had lusts and they had feelings. And like, you know, maybe like the sort of monotheistic gods and Christian gods are like a little bit different because supposedly they are moral authorities. But like, you know, they get pissed off. You know, God has wrath in the Bible, you know, like, my point is that, you know, this line, you know, even atheists will make up gods to pray to. Like everyone, like, one of the points of this show is that everyone has some religious feelings. Everyone has some religious behaviors. We tend to want to see meaning. We tend to want to see purpose. We tend to want to believe in immortality in some sense. We believe in like a moral order. Those are all sort of religious-like feelings, to some extent. And I think there's a similarity there to like we anthropomorphize everything and we religify everything. We deify everything. And so we see a sort of religious ritual happening here. It looks like maybe that's Campion or someone is burying Vril. The dead Vril android is having some sort of funeral rite. And that's another religious behavior that we do. Even elephants do it, right? Elephants mourn, and elephants have little religious funereal rituals when their friends and their family die. Like religion is such a ingrained behavior. It's not even just a human thing. It's just a fucking mammal thing, you know? Because I suppose these feelings have evolved because religious feelings help us survive in the long run. Believing that there's an order, believing that there's a future makes us behave in a way that ensures there is a future, you know? We get along and we help each other partly because of religious-like feelings sometimes. And Vril is buried with her favorite Nangs because those were her treasured possessions. There's the mask, the like punishment mask of the atheists. And we see grandmother's face. How interesting. That's what grandmother looks like. What kind of personality will she have when her veil is removed? I'm excited to find out. This little child has a very sort of eerie, Christ-like religious idol. It's interesting. We saw Vril carving a little doll of Marcus the Prophet earlier this season. So that again relates to the idea that, sort of everyone has some sort of inherent tendencies towards like religious like behavior. And ooh, she finds a little box, like another seed box. Are there more seeds in here? And remember, Vita ate from the tree of knowledge. So I wonder if Vita is following the entity and the prophecy because she ate the fruit, and the fruit will like change her. But I mean, like, eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge should make you disobey God. Because the whole point of like eating from the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden, God told us not to eat the fruit, but we did anyway, and that's how we lost our innocence. Whereas in this case, the godlike entity, wanted people to eat the fruit, which I suppose means that the entity is like Satan. The entity is the devil, not God. So who is God in the mythology of Raised by Wolves? Is there a God, or is there only our, the God we create through our human goodness to each other? I don't know. We have this cage that is lowered down to the planet core. Because remember, like a few episodes back, Marcus tried to go down to the planet core in the cage, but he didn't go all the way down because there was a snake skeleton in the way. Maybe this time Marcus will go all the way down to the planet core, and maybe we will finally confront Satan. Marcus will finally confront the entity that manipulated him and killed his girlfriend. So that'll be that could be a big deal. More of grandmother. Oh, she's got a personality. Is she saying, I promise those prayers will go unanswered? Is that what she's saying? I think grandmother might be like a hard ass, like, she's like an intense, like, anti-religion, all atheist all the time. And I think that, I think she might play a similar role to like Mother in season 1, because like Mother was trying to like stamp out the religious feelings of her children, and it did not work very well. Maybe grandmother will do a similar thing next episode. Looks like Mother is now wearing the veil, which is pretty terrifying. Maybe it was Mother who was saying, your prayers will go unanswered. I guess she's like fighting the snake now. She looks very powerful, very high up in the air, very dangerous, very scary. There's some kids having a snake festival. They're having a snake festival. They've made like it's like a Chinese New Year dragon, like the dragon. It's like a mama's dragon. They're having a festival. They're like worshipping the snake. Maybe this is what happens when you eat the fruit. You get brainwashed into loving the snake. There's like a religion to worship the snake. That's gonna go badly. They've got fireworks. That's good. I don't know where they're getting the fireworks from. And it's snowing. There's a climate change. Maybe the tropical zone won't be so tropical next season. Someone's trapped in a fucking placenta or something. That's not good. Who is that? Oh, that's weird. Where is that? Is that in the tarantula? Oh, I got questions. It is my time. Grandmother and father facing the acid sea. Father had a pretty big crush on grandmother. I wonder if they might have some kind of relationship. Although there's always something very uncomfortable about anyone called father having a relationship with their grandmother. That doesn't seem right, does it? But yeah, I wonder what this relationship will be like now that grandmother has like a personality. Because father was kind of crushing on her. So yeah, in 1 week, we will talk about the Raised by Wolves Season 2 finale. Can't wait. Gonna be cool. Ms. T in the live chat says, remember when that girl earlier in this season painted the snake and said it wasn't scary? I think it was a little boy, who painted a snake and said it's not a monster. So yeah, maybe the children, maybe the people will love the eldritch snake monster. That could be interesting. Maybe people will hate Mother if she kills the snake. This could be very, very interesting. Another cyborg being built. Creepy when grandmother said it's her turn now. Mother stuck in the veil. The veil will be a trap. Ooh, that's an interesting idea, guys. Yeah, you guys are saying that this thing is actually Mother trapped inside the veil. Like maybe the veil grows over not just her face, but her whole body and it traps her. That's a good point because the veil is that color. Like that veil, it looks like the same material as this thing that someone's trapped inside. That's a really good point, guys. Maybe the veil, maybe grandmother is not empowering mother. Maybe grandmother is trapping mother. Ooh, maybe that's her deception. Maybe grandmother is usurping mother. Ooh, that could be interesting. Grandmother and mother are gonna fight over father, says the dawn of van life. Kids love snakes. Kingsley says, do you think Sol is a conscious AI nanotech? Yeah, I do. I think it's a quantum computer that uses nanotech to do stuff that seems supernatural but kind of isn't. Josh Crows says, Lilith, a female figure in Mesopotamian and Judaic mythology, alternately the first wife of Adam and supposedly the primordial she-demon. Are you saying that's grandmother? Or maybe that's mother? Joshua says that Sol is just going to be one guy behind a curtain, like in Wizard of Oz. Yeah, I would like that. Like they peer through the fiery core and it's just like some fucking dude just pulling a bunch of levers. Remember that bit when, in The Simpsons, when they like descend down into the center of the planet and there's like a god with many arms just pulling a bunch of levers, and that's how God works? Yeah, I enjoy that. Hugh says that maybe grandmother will transform the humans into creatures so that they have everlasting life. Yeah, I could see something like that. Josh says that the veil was used by the Mithraics / technocrats to control grandmother. It stops them from being able to weaponize with their eyes. That's what the veil is for. Yeah, that's also a great idea. Maybe the veil is like a safety switch to prevent the necromancers from attacking. But once you take off the veil, they are dangerous. Yeah, you might be right. All right. We are going to end it here. Thanks for participating, everyone. This was fun. We will do one more Raised by Wolves Season 2 live stream next week, and I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Thank you, everyone, for the super chats and for participating in the chat. See you next time. Cheers. Thanks for the donation from Zach Daddy, who says, thanks for covering the show. Your content is very enjoyable. Thanks for the donation from David, who says, showing my support. This video podcast means a great deal to me. Don't have anyone else who watches the show to bounce ideas or clear up all the thoughts and feelings post-episode. Appreciate you risking demonetization and being open to very long videos. Cheers. Glad you're enjoying it, David. And thanks T8 Magic. All right. Peace out. See ya.